This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. Welcome to Long Way to the Top. Steve Kilbey and the Church have been a staple in not just Oz rock, but certainly impacting music around the world. I spoke with Steve last year prior to his 2022 tour. This year they embark on a new tour and a new album, and I'm glad to see that he took my advice about including Tasmania on the tour. I'm sure I had everything to do with that. This is a conversation that started going horribly wrong, but ended up being one of the best interviews I've done. It was every interviewer's nightmare. The moment Steve told me that he wished he'd never written one of the biggest songs of his career. It was a frank chat that pulled no punches, and for that, I admire Steve for his honesty. You don't hear it very often. I hope you enjoy Long Way to the Top with Steve Kilbey from the Church. Steve Kilbey from the Church, how are you?
Good morning. Pretty good.
Pretty good. Gearing up for your new tour, which is called, I love the title of this tour, it's called The Slings and Arrows of Outrageous Fortune Tour. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Obviously Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, from Macbeth, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yes. Yeah.
It's just, I guess, just the way it goes being in a rock and roll band for so long. There's wild ups and downs in my career anyway.
You've always been one for coming up with very interesting album titles, and they haven't been the usual titles.
Well, that's my speciality, isn't it?
It is,
or specialty, I should say. There's no such word. No such word as speciality. Yeah, well, sort of it's better than Steve Kilbey sings rhythm and blues.
But I think I'd probably still buy that album though.
Yeah.
Now you kicked off in the 80s, and you were a little different to other Oz bands at the time. You kind of embraced a more sort of UK psychedelic furs style vibe in your music.
Yeah.
Was that just intentional, like you wanting to be a little different to other bands out there?
It was wanting to be different and being different. I've never really liked, I've never really liked rhythm and blues and shouters and southern rock and all that stuff that was very prevalent when the Church started, especially in Australia, but all around the world. I guess I've always felt more aligned with a sort of a European sort of thinking in music and lyrics, and it was good. It was good to have something different to react against, I think, and it was easy to be different to all those things that all that stuff that was going on when we started. I think it's good to have something that you don't want to be, and it helps you be what you do want to be.
You're very much sort of like very different to the standard pub rock vibe that was happening out there at the time, and you really were put into that category of a lot of those incredible UK bands that were coming out. Even bands like The Cure, they had that real sort of, it was almost thinking music.
Yeah, just all that. Hey baby, we're gonna rock tonight. I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
That sounded pretty good, didn't it?
That was great.
Maybe I should have been doing that. Yeah, like literary references,
Yeah.
Slightly more esoteric subjects and rocking and fighting and driving around town.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
A very spiritual imagery within your songs, yeah?
Some spiritual stuff, sort of references to Christianity and other religions, stuff about vague references to reincarnation and
When You Were Mine, I think that was a song that was very much about past lives, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was all in there, trying to give them something different, but
Yeah.
some people like that and some people didn't.
Yeah. Well, look, you know what? You pulled a very big following right around the world. I'm going to say arguably the biggest song of your career, Unguarded Moment. You said at one point that the song just doesn't appeal to you anymore.
No, it didn't appeal to me then.
Yeah.
How
do you feel about it now?
I don't care for that.
Still?
I fucking hate it. Yeah, I really do. I fucking hate it and hate playing it and hate hearing it. And
yeah.
I hate people asking me questions about it. Ha ha ha.
I'm not going to talk about that song anymore.
I wish I didn't have to. I wish I never had to play it all.
What is that?
Just, I don't know.
What's the reason for that?
I don't know. Could you imagine that you did something you didn't like? Like one day I wrote a song and I took it in and everybody loved it and it became a hit and that was great. And I didn't think 40 years later I'd still be sitting here talking about it. It just doesn't appeal to me very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there any song then during that time of the church in particular? Because, you've written countless albums and so much music in your career.
Yeah.
Was there anything with the church that you just went, yeah, that was the song to me that was the achievement of my career, the best song of my career?
I think, as we went along, I felt those kind of things happening. I thought that when we did our album Heyday, the first song on Heyday was a song called Myrrh.
Yep.
And I thought that was that sort of defined the church in one song. If, you met somebody and they said, what does your band sound like? You've got one song. I'd probably play them that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unguarded Moment was just a bit rock and roll and all those things. I was just slinging off a bit bluesy and it's got the Chuck Berry solo and all that in it. Yes. But by the time we got to Heyday, I think we sort of really discovered who we were.
You did an album, though, that was Psychedelic Symphony, or you did a concert that was Psychedelic Symphony.
Yeah.
And I felt that it took your music to a completely different level. It was almost like it was a lush, if I could use that word.
Did you say a rush or a lush?
Lush. As in just euphoric
it's
almost.
Sort of like, it's really a trajectory that a lot of bands, if you're like a band like The Church, it's a sort of classical rock and roll band in the mold of the Beatles. And one of the things that we all want to do is play with an orchestra. And I think that was a realization of that. And I wish that we had been able to do a lot more of that concert instead of just a one-off show. I'd love to go around playing with an orchestra.
Yeah.
That was a real high point, definitely.
Yeah.
That was 2011 now, quite a while ago. Yeah, I wish that would come back. It's just very expensive and time-consuming.
And I felt that your music really, really lent itself to an orchestral arrangement, whereas a lot of songs don't. But your music really did. It was almost like it was meant to be.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I felt the same way. It was hard after that to go back to just being a rock and roll band after having having all that stuff coming in, George Ellis, the guy who did the arrangements, did a great job, and it was an amazing night. There were no mistakes. Normally, in the course of a show, there's a few mistakes, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
We'd been rehearsing solidly for 3 days, and we rehearsed twice on the day that we played. So by the time we started playing, we were all pretty knackered.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just one of those wonderful gigs that just, it all happened.
Yeah, magical. Yeah, nice. Now, coming into Starfish, the album, it was almost like you went in a slightly different direction with Starfish. It was the music sounded different. The whole vibe of the album was different, and not different in a bad way, but it took you into another space, I felt.
It was sort of stripped back a bit. So Heyday, the album before that, had a lot of ornamentation.
Yep.
There was a lot of, everything was sort of backed up with all these 12-string guitar, acoustic 12-string guitar overdubs. Once again, there was some orchestration, and then Starfish, which we did in America with those producers, was very stripped back and more serious, and the lyrics sort of took a slightly darker turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a conscious thing. I think that was just the way it worked out.
And of course, the song "Under the Milky Way." I mean, like that has become, such an iconic song in Australia. It's not another song that you hate, is it?
No, I don't hate that.
You don't?
No, I think it's a pretty good song.
Yeah.
I don't mind playing that one so much.
Nice.
You get pretty fucking sick of songs after 42 years.
Yeah, you would.
You do, playing it over and over and over, like whether it's your song or somebody else's song. I'm always excited by the new songs and the songs that don't play very often.
Yeah.
But Under the Milky Way, very, been a very kind, very good to me over the years, for sure.
Yes,
there's a lot of cover versions, and been used in a lot of different films and shows and advertisements, and I mustn't grumble about that one. That'd be tempting fate.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about your solo work as well, and we talked about the whole spiritual imagery, and I believe that you have your own tarot deck.
I do. However, so the paintings were my paintings, and the words were my words, but I have to say a guy recontextualized all of that into a tarot deck.
Yes.
It's not, although it is my tarot deck, it wasn't my idea, and I didn't put it all together and figure out how, and nor can I really read tarot. No. I don't really know anything about the tarot. But a guy had the idea, and he did all the work, and he got it made, and so it was mine, but it wasn't mine, if you know what I mean. So I can't really take the credit for that.
Well, I'm going to show you another tarot deck by another artist by the name of David Bowie. And so he actually put out, well, he didn't put out, it was his artist, David DeAngelis, put out the Starman Tarot. And just doing a little bit of digging, and I'm bringing this up because looking through your tarot deck, the King of Flame looks strangely like David Bowie.
Yes. Once again, I did a painting of David Bowie, and the guy recontextualized it into the tarot deck. That's the first I've heard of Bowie having a tarot deck.
Yeah, it was posthumous, but
everybody's got a fucking tarot deck.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Cold Chisel will have a tarot deck.
Really? Right.
They'll have the King of Flame trees, and
nice.
There'll be the Slim Dusty tarot deck. It's sort of like you go in a tarot deck shop and everybody's got a tarot deck. I think it's sort of
a bit overdone.
I don't know. an
Yes.
overdone thing. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but like taking that back. I mean, looking through. I mean, it's a great art form, and your art, which obviously features in the deck, has been a very big part of your life. Your paintings.
Look, I reckon I'm a mediocre painter at best. I started too late.
Yeah,
I don't have any technique. I
yeah.
don't really know what I'm doing. I started when I was 50.
You're better
You know,
than
I
what
started painting.
I draw stick figures.
Well, what can I say?
It's never too late.
You know, it's really funny. I was just reading this book called Exit Stage Left, and it's called The Strange Afterlife of Rock and Roll Stars.
Right.
And almost every mofo in this book is a painter, whether it's Terence Trent D'Arby or Shaun Ryder or Robbie Williams. Almost every one of the people in this book is now a painter. So, and David Bowie was a painter, and
what's with that?
fucking Nick Cave, whoever. I don't know. It's like after a while, I guess, from a very cynical point of view, one realizes that if there's people who buy your records, they'll buy your paintings as well.
They'll buy anything.
They'll buy anything. You can, and then there's this sort of thing where you go, well, if I can chuck music and words together, surely I can chuck stuff together on paper or canvas. But the thing with me is, because I've been doing music so long, I feel like anything I could envisage, I can do. I could actually, if you give me a studio and the musicians, I could recreate it. Whereas with painting, my ambitions far exceed my actual ability to do it. I might think, oh, I'd love to paint the sea and the trees and the birds and all of that. When I try and do it.
So you haven't recreated a Michelangelo yet?
It's a long, long way off.
Yeah. So getting back to your music and your upcoming tour. Let's talk about what we can expect. And firstly, I've got to say, you're not coming to Tasmania. What's with that?
No. Yeah. That always happens. I saw that when the tour first went up, people going, why are you coming to Tasmania? I don't book the tours. Someone just says to me, you're going to do a tour and you're going to go here and here and here and here. I don't know. I guess it's just not, I guess they figured nobody in Tasmania wanted to see us. I apologize.
I think there'd be a lot of people that would want to see you.
It's been a long time since I think the church played there.
Yeah.
Look, one thing about our tour is we're going to have two drummers.
Right.
The next thing about the tour, well, Tim injured his leg and had an operation, and he prepared the next drummer by teaching him everything and giving him all these samples and telling him everything he had to do. And then his leg came good again, and he trained up this relatively young guy called Nick Meredith, who's a lot younger than the rest of us. He trained him up, and then he thought, and I was delighted when I heard this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's a bit like having a threesome. It's something that all musicians dream of, having two drummers, but so rarely happens. And we're going to have two drummers pounding away, which, look, I saw this recently. I saw this Beatles tribute band that had Cram from Spiderbait and Wolfie Wolfenden, the Melbourne guy who's sort of like a Ringo type drummer. Yes. And they were doing Abbey Road with two drums. And I just couldn't take my eyes off this spectacle of two drummers. So I think it's going to be huge.
So you're not stripping back at all. You're going all out.
No.
Nice.
And we've got three guitarists now.
Right.
And this is the Really, it's the real Australian debut of Ash Naylor playing lead guitar,
Right.
who's just the most incredible guitarist.
Okay.
So it's going to be a monstrous sound.
Yes. Yeah.
If nothing else.
And so you're kicking off in Perth, and I've got the tour. I brought the tour dates up here. So September the 1st in Perth.
That's right.
September 2nd, Margaret River. September.
Can you believe that? We go to fucking Margaret River and we don't come to Hobart.
I know, right?
I mean, seriously, what the fuck? What the fuck is that?
I know. You could have at least like skipped over the ditch.
I know. Like, I'd love to play in Hobart. Is there a nice? I've done some nice little theatres in Hobart when I was there with Rock Wiz.
Yeah.
I just don't know why that is, but
yeah. No, there's some great theatres, and in fact, there's a lot of bands now that perform at as part of MoFo, which is the arts centre down in Hobart.
Is that the Thingo Museum?
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get an invite to that somehow.
Why is that?
Look, I went there once. Like, I went there. Am I allowed to say all this?
You can go for it. This will be on a podcast as well. So, yeah.
All right. I went down there. Everyone's going, "Oh, you got to go to Mona. You got to go to Mona." And I went there, and they were having an exhibition of sort of sewers, and they had walls with excrement flung all over them. And sorry, I just don't think that's art. I was left completely. It was like, just seemed like a real waste of, like, it was just rooms full of disgusting things. And at the time I was writing a blog, and I don't know whether they don't fucking care what I say, but I don't care. I don't care if I ever go there again. I don't fucking care. I don't want to play dark.
Did you ever go to the? Did you ever go to the Wall of Vaginas? Did you see that?
There you go. No, I don't want to see. I don't want to see shit like that. Literally, look, it's really easy. It's like music. It's really easy to stand on stage and make a racket.
Yeah.
And make a horrible racket with electric instruments or any instrument.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to throw excrement at a wall and say that's art.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, when I listen to music and when I see art, I want to hear something beautiful, and I want to see something beautiful. I want to see something inspiring. I don't want to. If I want to see ugliness and noise, I'll go down to a building site and stand inside a portaloo. I don't. I look. I was just maybe, and I'm very much in the minority here because most people rave about Mona.
Yeah.
The other weird thing about Mona was the day I was there, they had a faux Starbucks. They had this coffee shop, and it was just like Starbucks, but it wasn't Starbucks, but it had everything. And people going, "Isn't this great?" And I was going, "What?" And they're going, "It's Starbucks." And I said, "It's a Starbucks." And, "No, it isn't a Starbucks."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if that's fucking, if that's
they sell
fucking
bad
clever,
coffee or what?
It was like, I can't remember what the coffee was like. Whoever I was there with, they wandered around looking at the poop on the walls, and I went outside and sat there and looked at the harbour and enjoyed that a lot more. Yeah. But that's me, you know. I just don't like stuff like that, and it just seemed like a wasted opportunity having that wonderful space. And but you know, what do I know about being a museum keeper? I'm just a bass guitarist. I hope Brian Ritchie. Look, I met Brian Ritchie recently, and he was very unimpressed to meet me, I've got to say.
Oh, really?
So I don't think I'm going to be playing at that gig anytime soon.
So you won't be supporting the Violent Femmes at all?
I did support the Violent Femmes back in 1981 at a gig 1984, sorry, and a gig in America. Right. So I am aware of them. No, I don't think there's anything going to be anything on the radar there.
Well, just to finish up, what vinyl are you listening to at the moment? Are you listening to vinyl?
Fuck, you're going to hate me.
You're going to say no, aren't you?
I don't even have a CD player. I just I'm just listening to music off my phone. It's disgusting. No, it's really sad.
That's
I'm
disgusting.
a real idiot. I had a huge vinyl collection, and when CDs came along, I got rid of it all and bought CDs.
I know.
And then I had a huge CD collection. And then when like iTunes came along, I got rid of all my CDs. And now I've just got my phone and a boombox. But my ears have gone. So
right.
I have to say, I was very disenchanted with vinyl towards the end. When I started buying vinyl, it was much better quality than it ended up being.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to buy Brian Eno's latest ambient album, music for dentist waiting rooms.
Yes.
And it'd be this really quiet ambience. And then there'd be all this as the vinyl went round that really sort of ruined it.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember when I was 16 having a T-Rex record that I actually took to a party.
Yeah.
And someone had a nosebleed or something all over the record, but the record just played perfectly after that. So the quality of vinyl, maybe it's come back.
It has. I think they tried to go cheap, like let's do mass produce it out. Whereas now I think it's coming in more of that, 180 gram vinyl and, slow speed recording, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, it's really sad, but my ears are so bad that I can't tell the difference really because of all the music I've made and the screaming tinnitus I have.
Yes.
I can't really tell the difference between the worst quality MP3 and the best quality vinyl. It's all lost on me because I've lost all the top end in my hearing.
Yeah.
So
well, as long as you put your albums out on vinyl, we'll be happy.
Yes. I know a lot of people very, very excited. Very excited by vinyl still. I really think that's a great thing.
Yep. Well, your new album that's coming out next year, which is called Hypnagogue, I think it was.
The Hypnagogue,
The Hypnagogue. I would love to have you back on when it's out, and we can do a bit of a walk through the album, and you can tell us the tracks. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Okay, no worries.
Thanks, Steve. Cheers.
Bye, mate.
Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Long Way to the Top. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at the Long Way to the Top podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.